you think of yourself. And what you think of yourself depends on what you know of yourself. And what you know of yourself depends on what you've been told of yourself. Welcome, welcome to the show. We got a little rainy day today, but that's okay. We will take that because it could be snow, which they're talking about possibly happening tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. But hey, all in all, it's not too bad. And guess what, guys? We at this point again, too, of turning them clocks forward tomorrow night or early Sunday morning. It's that time. It's that time. So, hey, we're prepared and we're ready to move forward. But we're going to warm you up with some good information. Before we do all that, I have a couple of announcements. I hope you guys enjoyed the last two interviews with Professor Manu and Pim. I enjoyed him. I'm sure he's going to deliver a powerful lecture coming this March 16th. Make sure you be there. Get your tickets for Be Square because we know how important it is for us to know who we are and what we are about. You see, at this time and juncture of what we're dealing with in this country and across the world and globe, actually, when you're dealing with Black folks, because Black folks are awakening. They are awakening and seeking out their history and who they are, who they were, and a whole gambit of things that are coming up to the forefront. Because our ancestors said that hey, in the end, it all shall be unveiled because we are finding ourselves again, and the Creator had made it that way. So we need you guys to come out to arm yourself for our babies so you can tell them about the history that they are so gallantly trying to erase about us. So come on out, 216-323-6155. Get your tickets. March 16th. Doors are open at 2 p.m. and be there. And also to remind you about the Juneteenth Coalition. All right, we're preparing that parade and festival. So if you want to volunteer, you want to be a vendor, you want to just come down there and have a good time or be a part of the parade, give me a call as well so we can make that happen for our Freedom Day Juneteenth parade downtown Cleveland. And that is June the 29th, which is the last Saturday in June. We'll be closing the month out with a parade and festival. So come on and be a part of this. And I need to see you guys at the place. And the last introduction, because we're going to be introducing you guys to Ubuntu, which is a West African catering and cultural company. So you have a chance to sample some of the African food right after the lecture. So it's food for thought. Come on down. Tickets is $15 part of it. In the remote studio, we got our man, Brother Vince. What's going on, Brother Vince?
Well, I just have a couple of announcements myself. There will be an event at Larchmere Arts on next Saturday and Friday. I have a poet and artist, visual artist. Her name is Eris Zion Vinay. You may know her as Eris Edie. And I just found out through our friend Steve Boyd that she is actually related to Barbara Edie, who was one of the co-founders of the Cleveland Association of Black Storytellers. It's a gallery exhibition, and she's also going to do a poetic performance, and it will be Friday the 15th. There will be a VIP at 6, and then at 7 o'clock, she will do a performance. And then on Saturday, she's going to have gallery hours from 12 noon to 3 p.m. So you can go to erisedie.com, and that's ERISEADY.com, and you can find out about getting your tickets and reserving a spot in the house for you. You can see on the screen, if you are not watching us on YouTube or Facebook and you just happen to be listening to us on the radio, because we're doing all of those things, our guest this morning is none other than Nana Kra Kwamina II. You may also know him as Dr. David Whitaker. He's a career educator, cultural advocate, and African chief. He holds doctoral degrees in educational psychology and law. He's a national elder for African Genesis, and he served as Tufohen, the legal advisor for Nana Kojo Aduakwa V, the chief of Atonkwa Elmina, Ghana, since 2004. Nana has facilitated the Con Rites of Passage programming since 1994 and 2008, respectively, for Kent State and West Virginia universities. In 2004, he founded two Akan-based charter schools, now in their 14th year in Cleveland, Ohio, and he's published two books, Rites of Passage, A Journey of Transformation, and Why I Became an African Chief. It is with a great deal of honor and pleasure that I introduce you to Dr. David Whitaker. And of course, you all know that Dr. Whitaker is one of the most frequent guests that we've had on the show since it was created almost 20 years ago by our good brother Hamtonio. So again, Hamtonio, thank you for introducing me to Dr. Whitaker. My life has changed because I know him, and I'm sure he's had a tremendous impact on your life and the lives of others. Welcome to 360 Info, Nana Kra Kwamina II, also known as the 10th man. How you doing today, brother?
I'm good, Madasi B. I'm
Yes,
happy to
indeed.
be here. I've been back 2 weeks now. Came back 2 weeks ago Sunday, so I'm busy on this side of the pond, and I'm working every day. And thank the ancestors and God for the opportunity to wake up every morning and do what we do. So thank you so much for having me again.
Well, Nana, you kind of back early this year because usually you stay in Ghana until you have to absolutely have to come back to Cleveland. So you're back early. Our condolences to you because we know that you would still be over there enjoying the warm weather and not facing the prospect of rain or snow tomorrow. So welcome back to Cleveland. I want to start by talking to you about the state of Africa. You being in Ghana are just literally miles away from Niger, Burkina Faso, and also Mali. And we're seeing significant change taking place in those countries that may impact the continent. So I just want to get your take on what's going on over there and also ask you if it has any impact or effect on the state of Ghana.
Well, if I could deviate, as I usually do, I have that on my list as well. But I'd like to share a quick story of my mother's influence on me as it relates to this time. My mother, life dream was to have me graduate from college. I didn't understand what she was so invested in that concept for, but I asked her one day, why did she want me to go to college so bad? She said, well, son, if you go to college and you graduate, people will ask you to talk. I said, what do you mean people will ask? Why would people ask me to talk? She said, well, because if you go to college, people will assume that you know something worth listening to. So I said, well, if I go to college and graduate and people ask me to talk, what should I do then? She said, do more than talk, say something. So I have reached at this point 80, which is 80 years. And it started me to thinking, and I've been thinking this for a while, that time is shorter now than it's ever been. So if I have a chance to talk, it behooves me to actually say something. And I'm constantly thinking about what can I say that might be meaningful, not just be talking and issuing statements about things, but what can I say that might mean something to people, and it's something that they can use to grow from. So that's my preoccupation now, is to try to do more than talk, and is to actually say something and demonstrate something. And I'm 80 years old now. So I started thinking this morning, I'm the age that President Abraham Lincoln was talking about when he said 7 years ago, talking about the Gettysburg Address. I realized that the Gettysburg Address was November 19th, 1863. I was born November 18th, 1943, 80 years later. And then the January of that year, President Lincoln gave us the bogus Emancipation Proclamation. which pretended to free the slaves. And we have been thinking that this was done. School has taught us this lie, when actually, if we read the document, it would say all those enslaved people in the states that are protesting us will be free. So that's like freeing someone that is no longer under your control, is actually against you, and you're fighting with them, and you're going to allege and proclaim that all of those people held as slaves in those states that are in opposition to the government will be free. But you didn't proclaim any of those free in the states that were supporting you. So this led me to think about, what are the things that we have been told, and we're constantly told every day, that are not true, but they are convinced, we are convinced of their legitimacy and their efficacy and their appropriateness, even though if we looked at them more closely, we'd realize that they're not even true at all. So now I'd like to segue to the question that you asked me, because I've been in Ghana now for 20 years. It's my 20th year as a chief. I started visiting Ghana in 1992. 2004, I was installed and installed as Tufahin, as you have mentioned, and that time is now reached 20 years later. There's two things that I'd like to mention that I consider very profound and worth knowing. The African continent is basically a neo-colonial collection of 53 countries. Ethiopia was never colonized, and Liberia was never colonized. But all the other states, all the other nations were colonized. And today, if we look at them, all 53 of them have legacies of colonialism that they're operating with or around or through every day. Ghana's no exception. So I want people to understand that colonialism had three main objectives. One was military occupation, which Kwame Nkrumah eliminated in 1957 with the liberation of Ghana. But that was only the liberation from the military occupation. And by the 1960s, this cascaded into a domino effect, and the entire African continent was liberated. That liberation should be in quotes, because what they did was to achieve the removal of the military occupation of their land space. The other two elements of colonialism were, one, to set up an infrastructure that would allow and permit and facilitate the cultural imperialism that would turn those lands and people into their subjects, which would work to advance the interests of the colonial powers. The third objective was to provide the mechanism for the continuous flow of minerals and resources out of those countries to the colonial ruling nations. So even though the independence was achieved in 57 and 1960, and now they've all established independence, what's been achieved is the removal of the military occupation. But the other two elements are still operating today. The infrastructures that were put in the form of religious institutions, educational institutions, financial institutions, legal institutions, all of the courts still wear the British wigs and the wigs that were worn by the colonizers. So all of this infrastructure is still there in 53 African nations. And those institutions have created a continuous revolving door of leadership that has facilitated the removal of the minerals and resources and valuable assets of the countries to the former colonizing powers. So this neo-colonialism, fueled by this cultural imperialism, is what we are dealing with today and have been dealing with ever since the Berlin Conference that triggered the colonial wars, the ultimate seizure of the land space and the people, the cultural imperialism that has produced the countries that we have today. And we've had resistance and resistance leaders challenging these things all along. But today, to your question, to segue to your question, we have three nations, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, that are trying to throw off all of these institutional neo-colonial infrastructures and to stop the flow of minerals and resources out of their countries to their former colonizers or the West. That is being met with some confusion, shock, and awe, dismay on the part of the West. These three countries were part of the French colonial empire, which include 14 African nations. These three are in the Sahel. They are contiguous to each other. Burkina Faso is just the northern neighbor to Ghana, and Niger is on the east, and Mali is on the west. So they represent a considerable land space. Niger is strategically located as it relates to Ukraine and Russia conflict. And so these three military leaders have taken over control and ousted the political puppets of the colonials and the Western nations. And they have seized control of these countries. These are our modern day, our contemporary heroes right now. If we want to compare, this is like Malcolm X taking over, Harriet Tubman taking over, Yaa Santewa has taken control of these land space. And we should be, in my opinion, following them closely, cheering them on, doing what we can. Because France, as most people don't know, but those of us that are following these things are aware, France is probably the most evil of all colonial rulers. During the 60s, when France was considering independence for its colonial ruled territories, which is 14 countries, they offered them the opportunity to end colonialism by signing an agreement called the Pact for the Continuation of Colonialism. And this pact, if you signed it, would allow you to receive your independence from colonialism. But you had to sign an agreement that the name of the agreement was the continuation of colonialism. So you had to sign an agreement to be free from colonialism that on its face and by its name said you were signing an agreement for the continuation of colonialism. So what did France in this pact require? It required first that your language would be French. Second, your military would be French. Third, your money would be produced by France. Fourth, anything discovered on your land, France would have the first right of refusal to develop it, mine it, and profit from it. Fifth, and most egregious, you would have to send 85% of your money to France to be deposited in the French bank. If you wanted some of your own money that was on deposit, you'd have to borrow it from France at reasonable interest rates. France would not have to report to you what they did with your money. They could use your money in the stock market or whatever investments they wanted. They didn't have to account to you what they were doing. So this arrangement, which has been going on since the 60s, between France and 14 African nations enabled France to receive about $600 billion a year from these countries collectively. Currently, these three nations, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, have said no more to that. They have put the French out. They are talking about printing their own money. They are taking control of their own resources. They are saying we will be independent, not just in the freedom from your military being on our land space and in your occupation, but we are going to start the arduous journey along the path of full, complete freedom and sovereignty. We need to know also that there have been several attempts on the lives of these people, that they have thwarted the assassination attempts, that somebody wants this arrangement to return to the good old days. But they have thwarted those attempts. They have joined together in alliance of the Sahel nations. They have pledged to defend each other. Any attack on one of them will be considered an attack on all. They have resisted the ECOWAS nation threat to take military action against them if they don't return the presidents to their positions. They have said, bring it on. We're not doing that. And they have made alliances with China and Russia to reinforce and help advance their countries. So depending upon what happens there, I'm praying and hoping that the ancestors will guide these efforts, support them, because it will create the next major avalanche of other countries that will join them if they can be successful, will join their effort because they will see that it will lead to true independence and sovereignty. And so this is what's happening in terms of the three nations that you have asked about. These to me are the closest thing we have to the potential freedom that we talk about in theory, but they are engaged in the actual work to move towards that freedom that we would like to have. And many of our ancestors have said we'd rather be free and mess up our life than to be a slave on our knees. And if we have our own opportunity to be who we want to be, if we don't do it well, at least we did it the way that we wanted to do it. Now, Ghana is faced with a new challenge, as you are well aware of. The parliament has passed recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, February 28th, I think, parliament passed unanimously a bill, what they term, I have it right here, I haven't read the whole thing yet, but the proper title, it's being referred to as the anti-LGBTQ bill. But the formal name of the bill is the Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill of 2021. It's been going through Parliament for 3 years. They finally passed it. They passed it, and a few citizens have challenged the constitutionality of the bill in court. The bill has been moved to President Akufo-Addo's desk for his signature so that it will become law. The United States has recently made statements that unapologetically that they have talked to the Ghanaian presidency and cautioned that if this bill is actually signed into law, which means they would have to be talking to the President Akufo-Addo or someone in the administration that could speak for Akufo-Addo, that if this bill is signed into law, the United States will have to consider seriously whether they will support Ghana with any aid or some packages that they've been talking about to aid the economy. And so the president has 14 days to sign the law. into law, he's pivoted, saying that we should hold our judgment, since there's a case that's been filed in court to challenge the constitutionality of the bill. We should all take pause and see what the courts come down with. The bill was passed unanimously by the parliament. So they have no question that even if Kufuor does not sign it, they will have much more than the necessary majority to overturn his veto and put it into law anyway. So this is what's happening. The whole world, as we know, I'm hoping your listeners can appreciate what the significance of this is. The whole world knows now, without any doubt, no reservation, no debate, that the African continent has every mineral and every precious metal that the world needs to operate the global economy. You can't have battery operated vehicles without the lithium that is prevalent in African nations. You can't have cell phones without the cobalt from the Democratic Republic of Congo. You can't run the world without the oil that is all in the African soil. You can't make aluminum without the bauxite that is prevalent in African nations. You can't have Valentine's Day without the cocoa that is made in Ghana and the Ivory Coast. So Hershey's chocolate can't be made without Africa. So the whole world now is aware that African continent is God's green earth. Everything that operates and runs the world comes from Africa. And the African leaders are beginning to wake up from their comatose states and recognizing that they actually have the potential, if they have the African unity, if they can develop Ubuntu, if they can become Pan-African in the way they think, there is no reason for Africa to be struggling, because the whole world knows that Africa has everything that everybody wants and has to have. And they're beginning to move around now with a sense of pride and a sense of consciousness that says it's a new day. And as it relates to us, what does it mean to us? I think about this every single day, as you do. Most of our people are kind of still in a state of slumber where this is not something that they're thinking about. So African people are dealing with the neo-colonial malaise. And in the States, our people are dealing with, unbeknownst to them, most of them, they're dealing with the post-neo-slavery malaise. Our people don't realize that they're living every day in a post-slavery existence. Let me give you some examples. We talk about things that the money that we have. So I often say, we have money, but we don't have any sense. We talk about things that we have that we don't own. We talk about things that we do that we don't have skills to achieve. So we're totally confused. We say we have money. And I say, well, but we don't have any sense, because we don't use the money we have to do anything that gives us any freedom. We just use the money we have to demonstrate that we can buy things. Most of the things we buy with the money that we have are things we don't need, or we can't really pay for, or they're not really useful. They don't liberate us at all. Second, we say we have things. But people get upset with me when they come to Ghana, and I say, you know, the Ghanaian people as little as they have, their bottom line is positive and your bottom line is negative. They say, well, why, how could you say that? I say, well, the house that they have, as small as it might be, they own it outright. The house that you have, you rent or you lease. The car that they have, that they drive, is not brand new like the one that you lease, but you don't own the car that you lease. You say you get things done, but you can't get anything done. You don't have skills. If they say they get something done, they can say, I can build a house. They can actually build a house. You can't build a house. You can rent a house. You can lease a house. Everything you have is on credit. Everything they have is cash. They own it. So even if it's meager, it's theirs. So we talk in terms that suggest things that are not reality. We say we have things, but you don't own those things. You're renting them. You're leasing them. At the end of 3 years, you have to turn that car in. At the end of your lease, you have to move out of that apartment or you have to re-up the apartment. If you say you have a house, you're buying a house, it takes you 30 years to pay for it. And all that time you don't own the house. So we talk about freedoms that we don't have. So we actually are living in a glorious state of post-slavery. It looks, the grass is cut, but the lawnmower you're using, you owe money on it. It's not your lawnmower. You charge the lawnmower, so you got to make payments on a lawnmower. So you're forced to get up every day and go to work, whether you feel like going or not. If you're in Ghana and decide that you don't feel like going to work that day, you don't have to go to work. No creditors are going to call you to tell you that your mortgage payment is late. Nobody's going to call you to tell you missed a car payment. We know you're busy, so we're giving you a courtesy call. Nobody's going to do that. You own everything you have. So nobody can tell you you have to get up, you have to move today. So here we are living in a state of a condition where we have to do things, whether we like it or not. And we talk about revolution, that we're not ready to do anything in terms of revolution. We can't even provide the food for ourselves. There's nothing we can do that would say we are liberated unless we first do like Gil Scott-Heron said. We change the mentality, the consciousness that we have. Then we can move towards some actual state of liberation. Until that, we're just going through the maze of every day like a hamster in a cage running a wheel. And at the end of the day, all we can do is decide to stop running and go rest. But the next day we have to get up and start running again because we're not in control of ourselves. So we're still operating like slaves. We're not in control of our time, our thoughts, our actions are all dictated by a system that we feel proud about because we've moved to the suburb or we've moved to a gated community. But the gated community is like a cell that you live in. And everything you do when you leave that community is to go out and run around all day to try to get enough money to sustain your life inside that community. So you're like in a cage. And we haven't figured this out. We haven't figured out that we can't get reparations, but everybody else did. So you're not free. You're not considered equal to people that got reparations. Even the people that owned you got reparations. When they said you were free, they got reparations for the loss of you. But we still can't get this. So if we can't get things done, how do we say we getting things done? We have to see tangible evidence of freedom, not just talking about being free. We have to see tangible evidence that we're free, free to make a decision, free to move, free to come and go, free to think. So until we get to that point, and we have to move to that point by first recognizing that we don't have
Absolutely.
things that we say we have. And if we do have them their own loan, if you do have them they're leased, if you do have them they're borrowed, so that it's not something that you have that you can say, I got this. That's one of our phrases. I got this. I got this. So what do we got? We've got talk. We've got talk about what it is we got. We don't actually have the thing that we're talking about. We're just euphemistically describing it as something that we have. We don't have it. We have conversation about it. And so we have to get past
It's
the
like he froze
conversation.
up a little bit there.
Oh, am I back?
Yes, you good. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So we have to get past the
Well,
conversation, the
dead
rhetoric.
air is the enemy of terrestrial radio. Those who are watching us online might be okay. Here we
Okay.
go.
So that's my take. I could go into detail about the dynamics that are taking place in Niger and Burkina Faso and Mali too. But it may take more time than we have available. So let me stop there. That's what I wanted to touch on. Those are my notes. I figure I'm 80 years old. If I got another good 20 years, I can still do some good work. So I'm praying that I get 20 more years and good work will be done. And I'm trying to step up my game, accelerate efficiency, work hard every day. And I would suggest, I know you're working hard every day because we're talking every day. So you're on it every day. So I'm encouraging the rest of our people to get busy. Stop just talking about something. Get busy. Put your focus on something that's going to make a difference. And if you don't know how to make a difference, ask somebody that you know that appears to be working in that direction and follow directions. Don't pretend like you know things that you don't know. Don't pretend like you can do something that you've never done and you can't do. But because there's people doing the things that we're talking about. Anybody that's wanting to do something, there's somebody that's already doing it. So look for the people that are doing the thing that you would like to do. See if they will help you do it. Most of the people that are doing things and they're in their right minds know that they cannot get things done all by themselves. So they will be happy to help you if you're not arrogant enough to think that you already got it going on. Because if you got it going on, there would be evidence of it. If there's no evidence, if there's no tangible evidence of it, it's like your imagination. You're hallucinating. If there's no evidence, you're hallucinating.
Just a couple of things, Nana. I'm just remembering being in Kumasi and looking up and seeing the funeral notice for someone who was 120 years old. So
Right.
I want to give you another 40 instead of another 20. You're
I'll take
80.
it.
You don't look 80. You don't act 80. In certain ways, the wisdom.
Don't move like he's 80.
But you don't move like you're 80. So we want to give you another 40, brother.
I'll give another 40 will make it even better.
Yes, plus you got the 99-year lease, so you got plenty of time.
99-year lease, and you got a 99-year lease too.
Yeah. So I just wanted to unpack a few things that you mentioned, because when you talked about the French and the impact that they had on the countries that they were connected to as a result of neocolonialism, it just came to my mind that money has been the thing that the countries have been beholden to. You have that situation, then you have the IMF. Countries get in trouble. They come to the IMF, they borrow money. When they borrow money, the strings are attached, and that basically is a perpetuation of the slavery. But I just want to get to where we should, as African Americans, Africans who have been born and lived in America, we kind of are spectators in a certain sense. Most of us, I'm going to say most, because I know that we watch the news, but they don't show everything that we need to know in the news. We don't even have a clue about what's going on in Burkina Faso and Niger and Mali. We don't have a clue about what's going on in the United States. When you talked about money, we're in the process of something called the Great Reset that has been redefined as the Great Takeaway. So they're resetting things right now. And as you said, you don't own anything. And their slogan is you will own nothing and be happy. Well, the owning nothing part is there, but the being happy, I don't think is, because we deal with so much drama and stress and so forth and so on. So I'm just wondering, the relationship between those of us who are here and those of us who are there, and how we can work together to push back against what you identified as cultural imperialism and neocolonialism. And before you answer, I just want to give folks a chance to know that we are on Facebook and YouTube. We'd appreciate it greatly if you would like our channels and subscribe to our channels, because it would help us greatly. And we will go into overtime once we get to the noon hour. And I'm sure my brother Hamtonio has some things that he wants to ask our great leader here as we continue in our conversation. But what can we as Black folk in America, I'll just put it in plain language, what can we as Black folk in America do to support the brothers and sisters who are on the other side of the planet?
Now, let me mention a couple of things that I don't want to get your channel canceled. But
okay.
There's two main areas of exploration that we need to investigate seriously. Now, I'm going to come across as being somewhat obnoxious and maybe flippant to people that hear this. But the first territory that we have to examine carefully right now, with no foolishness, is between our two ears.
Absolutely.
We have vast resources in between our two ears that we have never explored. Our minds are filled with potential that we have not considered existing at all. So we have to all start thinking about, what is it that we are capable of doing? And how can we develop the skill, the potential that we have, in order to put ourselves in a position that we are not going to be duped for the rest of our life? So that territory is available to us. We could take full charge of that territory between our ears and stop using all of our energy for foolishness that is presented to us on TV, on our phones, on TikTok, on Facebook, on whatever it is. We're spending a lot of our time dealing with foolishness that we could be using that time, because we have technology available to us to make everybody a genius now. We have in our pockets, in our purses, in our hands, 4 or 5 hours a day, devices that can give us critical information about things, so we're not walking around in a daze. So we need to refocus our attention and figure out how to maximize that space between our two ears. The second thing, the second territory, we have to get in line with what the whole world has already known and discovered and are being unapologetic about it now. Our future, our frontier, the territory that we need to learn the most about is called Africa. Every nation in the world is trying to gain footholds in Africa. Africa has everything. And what can we offer to Africa? It doesn't seem like it to us on a day-to-day basis. But Africa is a continent of 1.4 billion people that's projected in the next 20 years to balloon into 4 billion people. The average age on the African continent today is about 23. So these are all young people that make up 75% of the population. Their educational systems are all colonial. The leadership that's trying to take hold and gain full independence and sovereignty, if they do that, or as they attempt to do that, they're going to need people like us here that are very familiar with the Western mentality. And we know, because we understand the Western mentality better than they do, we know how they could change themselves and reinvent themselves without replicating a new, improved version of colonialism. They don't need a new, improved version of colonialism. They need a system that allows and helps them to return to their traditions, return to what they were that made the colonials so eager to be there and colonize them. They already had wealthy nations and kingdoms. They already had civilization and justice systems. They had invented everything in the world already. What they have lost, because there's nobody on the African continent alive today that is familiar with the continent before the colonials came. That was over 100 years ago. There's nobody living today that is familiar with what they used to be like. In America and in the diaspora, we have had the opportunity that they have not had to actually study their history before colonialism. The colonials never taught them that in school. They don't know any schooling that would have taught them the things that our scholars, many of whom are gone now, the John Henry Clarks, the Asa Hilliards, the Runoko Rashidis. See, they've taught us all these things about the history of the African continent that the African person on the continent doesn't know. So all we have to do, in my mind, I may be oversimplifying it, but I've been living there and seeing people now for 20 years. So I have at least 20 years of experience upon which to make a hypothesis. It may turn out to be wrong, but we've all been living in the West for longer than 20 years, and we have been able to come up with some hypotheses too. So my hypothesis is our future is better if we try to link up with our African brothers and sisters than it will be if we just simply stay here and rely upon what we think is available to us right here. If we think outside of this box, we're going to have a better opportunity to be sovereign and free and successful than if we try to think outside this box and live here, because they are projecting that this box will be a box where you will have nothing and you'll be happy. Now, you just think about what that says. How are you going to be happy and own nothing? Because if you follow what I just said at the preface, you already own nothing and you're not happy. So, what's going to convert you into the person that owns nothing and you're going to be happy? You already own nothing and you're not happy. So to me, that's a paradigm shift that is predictable. It's misery. But that's the plan. The World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab is saying this over and over and over. You're going to own nothing and be happy. I say, well, apply that to the paradigm that you're living right now. You already own nothing and you're not happy. So I think that if we recognize that we have better opportunity to be happy and to be sovereign and to be free. If we link up with our brothers and sisters on the continent, they need us and we need them. They have mineral resources, they have land space that we don't have. We have knowledge that they don't have. We have skills that they don't have. We have expertise that they don't have, and they're going to need. So we have what they need, and they have what we need. So we have a perfect marriage. All we need is a healthy courtship and announce that we are capable and willing to work together. And then we can do that. We have a model for this too. We have a model right here. The Chinese that we see in the United States live in communities that they proudly describe as Chinatown. Most of the foundation for the Chinatown comes from China. They're not living on trying to figure out how to make inroads in America. Their inroads are made by identifying their territory, associating it with their homeland, naming it out of respect for their homeland, and using the resources, the supplies, the material, the machinery that comes from their homeland. And they live here. They're not running for political office. They don't really care whether Trump is elected or Biden gets another term. They're not concerned about who's the governor. They have their country, they have their culture, they have their space, they have their connection, and they're not confused about who they are. We could replicate that model, and there's people that are attempting to do this in the U.S. right now. Our group has purchased land in Georgia, and they're going to try to work it as a community. We could do something here called Ubuntu. There's enough of us that talk about unity, but we don't do anything that reflects the unity that we talk about. It's a recommendation. We're often citing recommendations that if we just come together, if we just get together, if we just pool this, if we just do that, that's all hypotheticals. That's if. But when it comes to actually doing it, everybody wants to be the chief. Nobody wants to follow. Everybody's got different ideas about the same one thing. And we can't get off of square one because nobody has the trust and confidence that the person is going to be true to their word. We're going to follow through. We're going to do these things. So we continue to tell ourselves that all we have to do is A, B, C, but we don't do A, we don't do B, and we don't do C. And we go back to living and pretending like the dependency in the slave existence that we live is better than other people in other places. So we can do these things. As you know, we are already engaged in a project that's based on this simple concept that Antonio is talking about. It's just Ubuntu. Here's the things we're going to do. We're going to each do the part that we say we're going to do, and we're going to see what happens. And we're in the process of seeing what happens. It's as simple as 1, 2, 3. Just do the things. So,
all right.
So that's what we should do. And anything short of that is, to me, is an illusion, or it's a delusion.
Okay. So you mentioned Ubuntu, and Brother Antonio revealed to us that he's got a project related to food and Ubuntu. It's an event that's going to take place next Saturday. So, Brother Lynn, give us the details on that, and then we'll segue over to YouTube and Facebook.
Yes. Well, you come on down, guys. You get a chance to again to meet and greet. Brother Whitaker should be there as well, along with Manu Pim, and we're going to be introducing to the community Ubuntu, a West African catering and cultural company. All right, so come on out and get your taste test in on some African food, and let's meet and greet Brother Whitaker and Brother Manu Pim. And, we got to keep this and chug this forward. So give me a call, 216-323-6155, 216-323-6155. That's at 2450 Prospect. That's at Wings Academy, Dr. Whitaker School, Wings Academy. Doors are open at 2 o'clock. Come on down, get your tickets. Tickets are 15, 20 at the door, or call me to get on the list.
Yes. And, it's not a small thing that this is going to be at Wings Academy. This is huge.
Right.
And I've been there. It's a beautiful school. It's a school that the Cleveland population of Black students should be in, because they ain't getting what they get at Wings Academy and the other classrooms. But I'm going to leave that alone.
We will talk about it there.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Also want to remind you about the event that will take place at Larchmere Arts, and that will be on next Saturday and Friday. Friday evening is going to be the gallery reveal and the performance by Eris Edie. And for more information about that, you can go to erisedie.com. That's ERISEADY.com. And you can find out how much it will cost to get in and what you'll be entitled to if you get in at this package or that package. It'll be all good. I want to take the time to thank our engineer, Tone Harley. As always, he makes it possible for us to do what we do on terrestrial radio and on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. We really appreciate what he does to support our doing that, because it's not a small thing, trust and believe. And we are grateful to those of you who take the time to watch us on Facebook. And as you watch us, please like the channels. Please subscribe to the channels. It helps us out tremendously. Everybody who's watching us on YouTube right now, go ahead and hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Again, helps us tremendously. We're going to be moving over to Facebook and YouTube in just a few moments. Until then, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make it a great day. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you, Madasi P.
All right. So now we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Our guest is Nana Kra Kwamina II, also known as Dr. David Whitaker. He is an Akan chief, and his village is over there in Elmina, Ghana. Years ago, he was very instrumental with his very first assignment, and that was to build a community center. And it's a great edifice. We get video from time to time when Nana is over there. We get to see things that are happening over there, and I've been there myself. It's a wonderful place to be. Brother Antonio, I'm sure there's something that was in your mind that was a burning question that you wanted to ask Nana. So here you go, my brother.
All right, give me one quick second.
Okay. So Wings Academy, we're really happy that it's there. How's the enrollment going? Is it picking up?
Well, I think as the enrollment, once school starts, your enrollment is kind of set because everybody that goes to school is in a school. So the enrollment has been pretty much stable since the school started this semester. So we could use enrollment, of course, because you can't have a school without students. So we have to constantly work to get students. And our school is a unique school model. So it's focused on helping students to come to understand who they are, where they're going, and why they're going there, and what contributions they need to make to their family, themselves, their community, their state, their country, and the world. So it's a challenge because that's not the prevailing paradigm of education. So it has its own challenges. Before too much time gets, let me make a comment about Ubuntu, because people may not be familiar with the term. So Ubuntu, by definition, means I am because we are. And because we are, therefore I am. And what that means culturally is that, let's take the three of us on this call. My identity as the person that you introduce, my identity is tied to your identity. I can't be me without you. And you can't be you without us. So we are intertwined in this identity. Our work together allows me to be somebody. And our work together allows you to be somebody. And so if we think like that and we understand that concept, you called me or texted me yesterday, Yao, and said, would I be available for the show today? And I said, of course, because there's nothing you could ask me to do. There's nothing that Hamtonio could ask me to do. And the answer would be no. That's not possible, because your success at what you're doing is my success. The success that you get from whatever you do is also my success. So your growth is my growth. My growth is your growth. So no matter what I would ask you to do, or you would ask me to do, or Hamtonio would ask us to do, the answer will never be no unless we're incapable. As long as I'm breathing and I'm capable, how could I say, no, I won't do something that you're asking me to do? Because I am you and you are me. The same is true in Ghana with Nana Kra. There's nothing that Nana could ask me to do that I would say no. But I also know there's nothing I would ask him to do that he would say no. Because we are brothers. And his success is my success. And his growth is my growth. So we get the benefit of assisting each other from what we do individually. So that's what Ubuntu means. And whatever you say for me to do, I simply do that. Because I know you're not going to suggest me doing something that will be harmful to you or harmful to me. That's a given. You're not going to try to take advantage of me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to take advantage of you. We're going to try to help each other as long as we can breathe and we're in our right minds. So we get 3 for 1. Anything I do, if I ask you and I ask Antonio, is 3 for 1. Antonio said, I'd like to do something at your school. Is that possible? Of course it's possible. Because it's my school, but it's your school too. So the answer is, if you have Ubuntu, you know that unless my health prevents it, the answer to any request that we have of each other is going to be yes. Just tell me what I need to do. That's Ubuntu.
Yes.
If you have that, you're going to have success in whatever you're going to try to do, because you have all hands on deck all the time. Just tell me what I have to do. Just tell me what I have to do. I don't have to be the leader. I don't have to be in charge of that. You're running that. I'm just helping. So it's revolving democracy too. It's revolving leadership. You say you'd like me to be the guest on this show, not the moderator for the panel. I'm the guest. I know what it means to be a guest. You shut up, you get a question, you try to answer the question. You're not talking to the engineer. You're not permitting people to come on and go off. You're a guest. So you act like a guest. On other occasions, I'm not the guest. You're the guest. That's Ubuntu. Stay in your lane, follow directions, do what you can do, and the thing will work out. And everybody shines. At the end of the day, everybody shines because everybody has the capacity to do things. Just do you, shut up when it's not time for you to talk, lead when it's time for you to lead, and everybody grows. Everybody wins. And all the people that we know that we consider our friends, they're all like that because we wouldn't have them as friends. We wouldn't consider them friends if they weren't like that. So it's a big Ubuntu community. That's what we need. We trust each other. We have experience with each other. We depend on each other. We rely on each other. We share our skills with each other. That's what we do. So if you have that, there's nothing to worry about. There's outside forces and factors operating all the time, but we know we can deal with those because we have a big collective of people.
Mm-hmm.
You got expertise. You got people that we know if our health is bad, we got people we can talk to. Say, and give me the straight story on it. Don't BS me. Don't pretend, because I know you're not going to do that. I want the true thing. And so we know we can call each other and say, well, look, I heard what you're doing, such and such. I don't think you should do that. And nobody's going to say, mind your own business. You ain't in this. Nobody's going to say that. They're going to say, well, what do you think I should do? What do you notice that I don't see?
Mm-hmm.
We are advisors to each other. So I wouldn't do it like that. I've tried it that way. It didn't work for me. And I don't think about it, but I think that here's a suggestion. We are advisors and counselors to each other. We take turns leading. We take turns following. We don't need to know everything about what the plan is. We just do what we're told. We assume that you've thought it through, you're thinking about it, you're trying to do it, and we're going to try to help it succeed. And if it doesn't work, we're going to come together and we're going to try another approach. That's all we're going to do. Our ancestors have done that for eons. They have shown us the models. You keep working at it. If one step, if one direction, if one plan doesn't work, you modify it and keep it going. You don't complain. You don't say, well, we ain't going to talk to each other no more because you had an idea, it didn't work out, cost me money, blah, 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 blah. We don't say that. We say, well, we had good intentions. Our heart was in the right place. Our plan was flawed. We experienced this setback. But that ain't the end of the story. The game ain't over till the clock runs out.
Mm-hmm.
The game is still on. So we're still in the game. So we're going to try another approach. We'll modify it. We'll fix it. But we're not going to give up on each other because something didn't work out. That's Ubuntu.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, my brother. I appreciate it. Let me first say this, brother. I'm so glad you said that. I mean, that whole first segment live, I mean, you all in my head and the things I've been preaching for so long about, trying to wake our people up to understand that's your future. We all, let's say all of us is over 60. Okay, let's at least say that. Okay. And by saying that, it comes to a point in your life that you start pioneering or you start looking what legacy you're going to leave back for those who pick up the baton that's coming after you. So I'm coming into that age of, okay, I see where my position is right now, and where I'm going. My question is what I'm going to do, to help those and my daughters and my family that is coming behind me. We got to start looking at that, like we would say here in Cleveland, if you decide to stay in America, what you going to leave the people? Give them a house that is paid for, which you say is never paid for over here, but leave them something that they can have a catapult them into something else, into wealth and things like that. And something I've been preaching, and people know I've been preaching, that Africa is the key. If everybody's trying to get there, that's telling you something. I used to do a little joke parody. We're not going to recognize it until we see it on TV with some African drums playing, and the man say, "Come to Africa." Then that's when we're going to wipe our eyes and say, "What's going on over in Africa?" That's when we're going to pay attention. So we have to get into the game, even if you don't move there. Look at investing there and doing something. Just don't give the continent up freely. And I want to say this too, just in case it may be the game, because everybody's on this aboriginal stuff, and it seems like these folks in the mid-age 35 to 45 is, hey, well, we was here, we was from here, and we're not necessarily Africans and all that other stuff like that. And it could be fueling a lot of that information, just as a thought, just to plan in our head that because Africa is the new frontier, they may freely give Africa to the people, because they're so grounded now into a system and a place that they don't care nothing else about. Like, what's the African proverb? Once the fool have learned the game, the players have dispersed.
Yeah.
So they've been on dispersed from this, and they over in the African continent trying to do their thing, and all the value ain't even here in America anymore. They over there now. We proud to get something that is worthless now, and on the downswing on everything. So, Doc, what I want you to speak on real quick, and I've said on panelists, and you said, and you said it, you hit it the nail right on the head about the mindset. If we don't change that, we having problems. A lot of us, our work is futile, and we just going in circles on that hamster wheel. I remember having a conversation with you when you was talking about some of your teachings in school, as far as your psychology work in school. Could you briefly touch on, and I think we can relate our state of mind to that, on how they paired you up with the bird, and the psychology that you had to work with the bird, and experimentation with that.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
You're talking about conditioning.
Yes.
Most of what we've learned is been learned through programming and conditioning. And psychology, you have operant conditioning and you have behavior modification. Most of what we do is controlled by behavior modification. But I was introduced to this at Kent State University, to make a long story short. But we would each be given an experimental psychology. You'd be given a pigeon. And the first couple of weeks, your job was to go to the lab. The pigeon was in a cage. You go to the lab and you'd befriend the pigeon. The pigeon would be happy to see you. You'd be bringing food. You would pet the pigeon and rub the feathers, and you would become allies with this pigeon. And you would bring food, and you would weigh the pigeon all the time to see if his body weight was constant or was gaining weight. The idea was for the pigeon to have stable weight or gain weight. And then you would spend the next 3 weeks starving the pigeon. But the pigeon recognized you and had a good rapport with you, but you didn't bring food. So once the pigeon was down to 85% of its body weight, you would know that the pigeon is in search of food, because it's now feeling beyond hungry, it's starving. So the person that befriended the pigeon is also the person that is now starving the pigeon. But the pigeon doesn't know that you're the enemy. You're causing this starvation. So now you can teach the pigeon things, because you know the pigeon is in search of food. So you can put the pigeon in a Skinner box, where you control all the light that goes into the box, you control the water that goes into the box, you control the food that goes into the box. And we would train this pigeon based on the receipt of food pellets. So you could put them on schedules of reinforcement. For example, you could set the relationship for the pigeon to press this little bar 10 times before it got a pellet. Then you would track how often would the pigeon do that. So the pigeon, once it figured out it would take 10 presses of this bar to get a pellet, it would start pressing that bar very fast, constantly, until it got satisfied with the amount of food. Then you could set it so the pigeon would have to press the bar 50 times to get the pellet. So this would be called continuous reinforcement. Then you would evaluate how long would that behavior last. So if you have continuous reinforcement, you realize that as soon as the pigeon pressed that thing 10 times, there's no food, press it 10 times, there's no food, it'll stop pressing it. So then you go to a different schedule of reinforcement, which you call variable schedules of reinforcement. So first you press 3 times, then you have to press 5 times, then you have to press 10 times, then you have to press 15 times, then you have to press 2 times. So now it's harder for the pigeon to figure out what the sequence is, so it keeps pressing longer because it's variable. Then you can vary the time and the frequency. So if you think about this, this is what goes on in Las Vegas with slot machines. The behavior is constant because you don't know when it's going to pay off. You don't know how much time you got to play the slot machine before you hit. So you'll play longer and longer and longer and keep spending more and more money. All this is based on behavior modification strategies and variable and different time sequences of reinforcement. So most of what we do in life today is based on these principles of behavior modification. There's people that are driving cars now that the first time they saw the car, they hated it. But after they saw 75 commercials showing this vehicle, they started to like it. But it's no different than the vehicle they saw at first that they didn't like. So much of what we are chasing, we're chasing because it's been put into our mind and we've been put on schedules of reinforcement. Social media is great for that. Everybody wants something to go viral, even though the thing is stupid. If it goes viral, it's an accomplishment, but it could be a stupid thing. So we have to realize that we're in an environment where almost everything is controlled. The food we get, we don't grow. We go to the grocery store to get it. If the truck doesn't bring it, it hasn't even dawned on us if there's a trucker strike, we won't have any food. We don't understand the connections between our life and the things that we need. If somebody hacks the electric company, we don't have lights, we won't have heat. We don't really know that consciously. We just assume that this is all set up so it works. It's a big Skinner box that we're living in, that we can't get out of it. And we think we're free, but we don't appreciate just the amount of controls on us, from traffic lights to jaywalking to banks to food to television to everything. Everything we do is being controlled. We just don't feel like it because something tells us that we're free. But if we think about just how much we operate under control of different things, it will cause us to reflect and reevaluate in our mind just how free we are and how free we're not. So that's the story of that's behavior modification. And so almost all of what goes on with us is based on principles of behavior modification. That's how Klaus Schwab actually knows that we can be convinced to have nothing and be happy, because they can make us feel happy. They can make us feel happy. They figured out how to do that. Right now, people with a phone, the happiest moment on a phone is just for a lot of people to see themselves in a selfie on TV. It looks like TV to them. They see themselves on a selfie and they're really happy. So we can't underestimate the capacity of Klaus Schwab to make us happy. We know they can make us happy. As a matter of fact, the whole United States education system for people like us was created in 1900. People think it's been going on a long time. It's been created in 1900. After 1863, the Civil War, it was obvious to people that the enslaved people were going to have to be free. And so they figured that the best thing to do, what were you going to do with all these people? The best thing to do is give them formal education so that they would be able to function. But the debate in the General Education Board is what created this system of education. And the system had two objectives. And I want you to think about this when you think about what parents ask their children routinely. It had two objectives. At the initial meeting, the minutes are in the Smithsonian, so I haven't seen the actual minutes, but I've read some of them. At the initial meeting, this was all created by Rockefeller. The initial meeting, the discussion was what will be the objective of this education that was going to be provided to the former enslaved population. So several people that were invited to be serving as initial board members were very excited about the possibility of creating new doctors, lawyers, accountants, and things from these former enslaved people. They were cautioned that that was not the objective of the General Education Board. The General Education Board had two objectives in the education that was going to be provided to the former enslaved population. Objective one was to give them skills sufficient for them to use so that they would become comfortable with the position that they were in. You're a second-class citizen, you'll be comfortable with being a second-class citizen. You have enough skill to use to be comfortable as a second-class citizen. And second, the second objective of the education system was to teach children that it will be a reward to have fun. So now if you pay attention to what parents, this is 2024, you pay attention to what parents ask their children when they leave school and they see them for the first moment. It's a common phrase to parents that have children. Did you have fun today? Did you have any fun? The biggest complaint about school is that it's not fun. The main objective of the General Education Board was designed so that school would teach people to enjoy having fun. You don't have to learn anything, but if you have fun, that's good enough. You have fun and you become used to the position that you're in. So people like us have trouble with a lot of these systems because we want more than having fun. So if you want more than having fun, you start asking questions and you start having expectations and you start wanting something that the system was not designed to give you. You want some results. You don't just want fun. And if you take this to its logical or illogical conclusion, our people are more interested in having fun than anything else in life. Everything we do is focused on having fun. So we ask ourselves, why is it that people don't want to put in hard work? Because hard work is not fun. The result can be fun, but the work itself is not that much fun. It's just something that has to be done. But our people are consumed by having fun.
Yeah,
that's our problem.
Yeah,
we want to have fun, and we want to be dressed to have fun.
Hey, doctor, do you relate that to the whole? We still under the Roman. They say we still under the Roman rule, and so that's the same Roman philosophy: giving bread and circumstance, feed them and entertain them. You control the masses.
Well, I'm not as familiar with that the theory behind it, but it it rings true if you look around and see what motivates us. And we're only talking about I'm only talking about our people, but those are the only people I actually care about is what's going to happen to our people.
Mm-hmm.
If you look around at us, we seem to be, the evidence seems to support that we are more interested in fun than we are in anything other than fun. And the work that we have to do, a lot of times we are unwilling to do it because we can't see the fun in it.
Yeah.
We're looking for fun.
Just looking at the education system in Japan and comparing it to what Rockefeller initiated here in America, the young people in their schooling system for the first, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years, they don't take tests, they don't get grades, so their indoctrination is really tied to their perspective on culture.
Mm-hmm.
So the children clean the school every day.
Right.
The children take part in feeding themselves. It's not the pressure, the competition that we have. It's really more about giving the children philosophy and understanding to help them be successful in life. I think there's also a parallel to the work that you've done. We mentioned the rites of passage programs that you've been connected with at Kent State University and West Virginia University. It's such a critical thing for us to have a culturation that connects us to our identity. And we look at education here in America, it doesn't really connect us to our identity. When you look at what they're doing in education, they're doing everything that they can to push us away from any understanding of who we are so that we can be controlled and manipulated. So I think it might be appropriate just to point out the importance of having that cultural foundation that connects us to an identity that allows us to embrace the whole idea of Ubuntu.
Well, you're touching on a major consideration. When you talk about Japan or China or India, see, there's a significant differentiation. Everybody in Japan is Japanese. Everybody in China is Chinese. Everybody in India is Indian. So, what is the objective of their education? The objective of their education is to strengthen and reinforce and prepare the next generation to further the culture that they live in.
Mm-hmm.
So, they do things in a way that they believe will help facilitate the perpetuation of their culture, the strengthening of their culture, and the advancement of their culture. So that's the bottom line in terms of the philosophy. So now most people won't want to hear this, but if we come to the diaspora, come to America, what is the purpose of the education system here? The purpose of the education system here is to strengthen and facilitate the control and management by the people that created the education system. The founders of the country are interested in perpetuating their strength, their control, and their continued rule. So, what was our purpose for being brought here? Was to work for them. So the purpose for they had education then. We weren't involved in it. Their education was to prepare their sons and daughters to continue their control and rule over the government. We were the workers. So once you got to the point where slavery was outlawed, So you're an ex, as Malcolm said, you're an ex-slave. So what is the purpose for you now in this structure? The purpose for you in this structure, according to the architects of the structure, is to work for us. You just won't be a slave, but you'll work for us. And the system belongs to us. The Constitution says it belongs to everybody, but its design was designed by specific people. It didn't belong to everybody. It didn't contemplate everybody, and it didn't include everybody. Not in the management. You were included as a worker of free labor. So once your labor is not free, you don't advance from a laborer to a manager. You're still a laborer. You're still part of labor, but in a different configuration. It's civil rights pushing and constantly pushing, which brings us almost full circle to what we're talking about. The civil rights movement and the perseverance of this African person is so phenomenal that it's almost unimaginable how you could survive the plantation life, how you could survive Jim Crow, how you could survive the KKK, how you could survive discrimination, and you're still here. So it's the pushing of the civil rights that has actually made the country look at us in a different category of not a slave on a plantation, not a menial worker, but it's our ancestors through their efforts that have forced the system to consider you almost as a person. And so you become you advance in the police department or law enforcement. I can advance at a university and be doing such and such and such and such. But now here's the challenge that we have that's fueling a lot of what's going on. People just don't know it. The democracy that was created here works very well so long as you are the majority, because it's majority rule. So as long as you have votes, you can make the system do whatever you like. I've often said that democracy works best when you are in the majority. When you're not in the majority, apartheid becomes its handmaiden brother or sister. So what do I mean, and how does that affect us today? Well, we live in the diaspora in America. We live in a nation that was designed to work best when the controlling group is the majority. Demographics are now suggesting, and the data suggests, that majority is no longer the majority. It's hanging on by small margins now, which means you can't just vote yourself in the way that you want things to be. So if you don't have the numbers to vote yourself in accordance with the democracy that you created, you now have to reconfigure that system so that you can still control that system, even though you're not in the majority. So all these machinations that are going on because the majority that has enjoyed the capacity to simply vote and prop up the pretense of a democracy is no longer going to be in a position to do that. The Hispanic population is growing too much. The Black population is too much. And so now you're going to have a collection of minorities. So the system is designed to work best when you are the clear majority. Those days are over. So what you're going to have to do, you either have to throw out the whole system and come up with something else, or you have to change the rules so that you don't have to be a clear majority anymore, because the rules will still work for you. So you have to start changing these rules. You can't have Roe versus Wade. We got to undo that. You can't have critical race theory telling everybody the truth about history. So we have to outlaw that. You can't let all these people vote that will outvote us. See, this stuff is so predictable and transparent. I don't know why people just can't see it for what it is. This is a predictable result of a diminished population, because you got to have people to vote, and you got to know who they're going to vote for. And if they look like you and they are part of you, you're going to assume that they're going to vote for you. So once you don't have the assurance of that, you got to start changing these rules, because the rules will work against you. The majority will rule.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to change that if we're not going to be in the majority, because then we'll be overruled. And so we can't have that.
Is
So
that therefore we want our country back? Is this what we're talking and saying here?
That's another way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
We can see that we're going to lose our country because we don't have the voting power. So we got to change the way this thing works.
You know, Nana, it's really interesting when you talk about voting and you look at all the things that have happened in the past couple years. And now we find ourselves in this crazy place where America is seriously considering electing someone with so much legal baggage. It's unprecedented that a president could have been implicated in so many things that were questionable, but could be the front runner in terms of the campaign. Nikki Haley dropped out. I hear conversation that Marianne Williamson may have dropped out or is considering that. But we're looking at, and no disrespect to you as an 80-year-old man, I look at your mental state and I look at the mental state of the person who is president right now, and it's like they're just worlds apart. And it's so ironic that you were born a couple of days apart, because he was born on November 20th. Our good friend Stephen E. Boyd was born on November 20th. I won't hold that against him either. But it's interesting when we look at the reality of our political system right now and all the trouble that they're going to dissuade us from voting. But at the very same time, democracy is an illusion. We think that the president has power that the president doesn't have, because the president doesn't have the mental acuity to speak intelligently about the policies that he's promulgating, if I can use some P's in my conversation. But it's interesting where we are right now. This election that comes up this year, a majority of the House of Representatives are up for re-election this year. And a large number of the senators are up for re-election. And of course, we have the presidency that's up for grabs as well. Given your lifetime of observing the political process, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I'm curious as to what you see as our future as we look at this opportunity for unprecedented change in our political system and how that relates to us as people in this country.
Well, I even posted several weeks ago, I posted a question. I had an image of the two potential front runners to this year's presidential election. And my question for us is, America has over 330 million people, some of the most brilliant minds in the world today. Pulitzer Prize winners, achievement awards of all kinds. And what does it say about this society that these two people could be the best possible candidates that we could put forth to become the leaders of the free world. It says something about the society itself. 330 million people. These are the two best people we could find. See, China would not do that. Other places where you are concerned about your culture and the perpetuation of your society, you would not put in the hands of two people that are clearly compromised. Who would do that? Unless their position that they're going to occupy in the whole scheme of things is not that important. Maybe they're just there for us, the populace. But in terms of the actual operation of the company, maybe they're just a figurehead, and it doesn't really matter who they are, because there's got to be other people that are more capable out of all these people. 330 something million people. There's got to be people that are more capable. So it suggests to me that maybe they're not as relevant as we are led to believe, which is the point that you're making. Maybe they're not as relevant, or maybe we shouldn't consider them as relevant. So I think it goes back to, I have another analogy. What does left wing and right wing imply? It has the notion of some kind of characterization of a bird. If you have a left wing and a right wing on a plane or a bird, don't you see that both of those wings are part of the same bird?
They're working together.
These wings are working in concert. One's on the left, one's on the right. Far left is just the tip of the wing on the left. The far right is the tip of the wing on the right. But you can't tell me, and history shows us, that these two wings have never served our interest. Whichever one happened to be the rudder, or we are turning the plane hasn't gone anywhere that has benefited us. We've still been on that same plane. That same plane has landed and we've been in the same position. So part of me says we can't get too preoccupied with what's going to happen with the structure. We've got to be preoccupied by what are we going to do, depending on, we're going to keep coping no matter what the circumstances are. That's what we've done since 1619 and before. We've been trying to figure out, what are we going to do given that they do this? If they change this rule, what are we going to do? If they make a new provision, what are we going to do? If they take away this, what are we going to do? That's all we've been doing for 400 years.
Reactionary.
We've just been saying we're gonna just do what we got to do. That's what we say. But I say if we focus on not doing what we have to do, but doing what we want to do, then we won't be reacting to everything. I actually think now if we will be fine if we can just stay out of the way of the things that are being planned for our demise.
Well, speaking of that, the things that are coming our way are completely revamped financial system. They're talking about digitizing our dollars, and that's another subject in and of itself, because our dollars are already digitized. You know, money is an illusion. You know, I was thinking earlier when we were talking about the IMF and the debts owed by African countries and all of that. The money that is owed is money that does not exist because it's not backed by anything. It's just a ledger system.
Right.
They could wipe away all of that debt
For
with
sure.
a single keystroke, and it wouldn't exist anymore. So it's something that just exists in our minds. We take out mortgages on our houses. You buy a house, you don't walk into the bank with $20,000. You write a piece of paper, it's a check, or you might do an electronic transaction, but the money never changes hands because it doesn't exist. It's someone in the chat earlier said, I think it was Medusa Sunshine, she said it was all smoke and mirrors, and that's exactly what it is. So all this debt that is owed to European countries by African countries, it doesn't exist. And I guess the question in my mind is, when are those leaders going to wake up and understand that, as you pointed out, they have the goods. We have the goods. We've got the coltan. We've got the cobalt. We've got all the things that are necessary to make all the things that make this world work. And when we wake up and say, okay, well, you're not getting it for free anymore.
I think you're right, and I think we're coming closer to the precipice of that. But we should also ask ourselves something locally. We should ask ourselves, how is it possible for a nation that admits an indebtedness of $33 trillion? How can that nation afford to make a loan? Where is the money to make a loan if you admit that you're in debt to the tune of $33 trillion? Who could do that? How could that be done? Unless the money that you have is all monopoly money, which is what you're describing. It's all monopoly money. And you're right. These debts only exist because the so-called debtor agrees that they exist.
But Doc, but here's the thing about it. The same people that actually makes the money for the country is the ones you have way older debt to. You know, don't you think that's like a conflict of interest right there, Doc? It don't make sense.
Well, it's like but Yao is hitting on it, and the sister that wrote in is describing it. We're just not interpreting what that really means. The debt is an illusion. It's a debt that if I tell you you owe me $5,000 and you don't say, how is that possible? You say, well, I'm not able to pay you today. The cartoon always had that on one of the Disney cartoons. Say, well, I can't pay you today, but I'd be happy to pay you on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But you don't ask, well, how do I owe you $5,000? If you don't ask that, and you just assume that you owe me because I said you owe me, then it's all good because you're just willing to pay. I say, well, I can loan you some money that you'll be able to pay me, but you'll still owe me the money that I loaned to you, but you can pay me back the first money that you had. So it's all a game. It's all smoke and mirrors until the person says, well, I'm tired. This is where I get off. I'm not going to pay you. So what are you going to do? You're going to repossess what? You didn't give me anything. So you're going to repossess what? You're going to sanction me, and then what?
Right.
You're going to say I can't do something, and then what? So, but what Yao is alluding to is once we think in our minds and we realize and separate what is real and what is my fantasy about the boogeyman that's in the closet. Because it's all a big boogeyman that may not actually be there. But you won't know that until you get up and you open the closet and you see that they're just your clothes. You've been worried about this thing all the time, but there was nothing really to worry about. It was just in your mind. So as soon as there's a moment of truth that's coming, yeah, that I think will uncover some of this. The moment of truth is coming, and we see, and going back to Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, France threatened to do all these things, but they end up removing their troops. ECOWAS threatened to take military action against these countries if they didn't reinstate the president. But they didn't reinstate the president, and ECOWAS said, well, let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
But just like any bully that we've encountered going through school, the bully's power is there only until someone stands up to that bully.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a moment of truth coming in the next maybe 4 months in Ghana. Akufo-Addo either has to sign this bill into law or not sign it.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. is threatening to remove loans if the bill is signed. The parliament is threatening to override the veto, and they have the numbers if it isn't signed.
Mm-hmm.
The courts are going to take up the constitutional challenge, which I believe could be orchestrated just to delay. Either way, the presidential election is coming up in December. Between now and December, the presidential election comes off anyway. So the moment of truth is going to now, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali are showing that France is not got the teeth that it said.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've said, we're going to close your embassy, move your people. We want your military out of here. We're going to get out of the ECOWAS, and what you going to do about it? That's what they're saying. Russia is giving us military to Burkina Faso, so we got Russian military that's going to help protect. We've taken control of our borders, which the France said that they were doing for 20 years, but they never did it. So we've done it in 3 or 4 weeks. So the moment of truth that you're talking about, the waking up, is the wake-up calls are coming.
Mm-hmm.
South Africa's making statements. Zimbabwe's making statements. Uganda's making statements. So the bluff is being called. And the assassination attempts so far have not been successful.
Wow.
So this stuff is coming to a head. The momentum is building. And so in the next 6 months, we're going to know things.
You know, let me say one thing quick. What you're saying, it really brings me to, we got to bring in one of our greats, and I know you appreciate him as well, Dr. Amos Wilson.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and it reminds me of what he said, and I see that what's going on, because the reason people is able to do what they do to you or to us as a group, because we are the way we are. And Dr. Amos Wilson said, change the way you are, then you don't have to worry about somebody else. He says, we worried about the white man and try to figure out him and what he's doing in his Federal Reserve and all this other thing. He also said, change your value system, the things that you value. The man loses his power over you. So he's, through his media and all his resources, dangling all these carrots in front of you and telling you and psychologically put you in this state of psychosis of, you need this, you gotta have this, and this, that, and other. And so you chasing this carrot all the time. Now he has power over you. So quit worrying about him. Change your reality, and the man loses his power over you, or he has to change the way he interacts with you, because Burkina Faso and Niger and all these guys change the way they operate. So therefore now the game has to change because you changed.
Here's a simple analogy that anybody in the audience can appreciate, because we've all been, as little kids, we've been at the park, and we played on a seesaw or teeter-totter. And we're on the side that's down. We got enough weight to keep our side down, which means that the people that we're actually working again, if we're down on the teeter-totter, where are they? Their side is up. They're higher than us only because we agree to be in this down position. But what happens in the park, which we love to do, and we've all done it, where we decide that we're down and we just get off of that thing.
Right.
As soon as we get off, as soon as we decide that we're not going to be in this position and we get off, they come down, but they don't come down slowly.
Crash.
They come crashing down. So all we have to do, which Amos Wilson's telling us, all we have to do is explore that space between our ears and go around, look around in your life and figure out what are the things that go on where you could say, I'm off. I'm getting off here. And you just don't do that anymore. That is sustaining your dependence. That's sustaining your oppression. Is your willingness to occupy that position is what's allowing that position to continue to control you.
Yes.
All you got to do is say, this is where I get off. And I say to people all day, so this is not complicated. We've done these things many, many times in our life. They said, no, I've never done that. I said, yes, you have. You've had friends that were your best friend. They ain't your best friend right now. You've been married and you said you're going to stay married till death do you part, but you ain't married to that person right now. You worked at a job that you say, I'm going to be at this job forever, but you don't have that job now. You got a new car and you said, I'm going to keep this car forever, but that's not the car you're driving today. So there has come points in time, multiple times in our lives where we said, I'm done with this. And from that moment on, you function without that thing. I'm just suggesting that part of our liberation, maybe the biggest part of our liberation, is in our capacity to look around at our lives, look at how you spend your time, and determine all the things that you could say to yourself that I could do without this. Because everything you have, everything we do fuels the people that control us. They're counting on our complicity in our own oppression. It's just like the bird, the pigeon in the cage. They're counting on me to be friendly, and I'm the biggest enemy that they have. They just don't know it. I'm the one that's starving you to death. You just don't know that. But the pigeon, if it could figure a way to get out of that cage, it would never press that lever again. If it could get food some other way. And we have other ways to do things. But everything we do, if we thought about it like this, everything we do, since we don't own things, we don't control things. So that means everything we do goes to the benefit of whoever owns and controls those things. And it's not us. How many of those could we say we just won't do anymore? Because anything that we stop doing is affecting the people that are controlling us. So Africa has a better chance of succeeding at that than we do. Because Ghana could simply say, well, if you won't give us a loan, we're going to stop you from mining the gold that's in the soil. That's all we're going to do. We're going to stop you from taking the bauxite out of the country so you don't figure out how to make aluminum some other kind of way. We're going to stop you from taking the lithium out of here. So figure out how to make batteries another way. And we'll try to struggle and find someone else that can make batteries out of lithium, that can mine gold. We can find other people to do this. And I'm thinking, I'm believing, I'm praying and hoping that a lot of the people that Africa could be looking at and depending on to replace these people are us. We have the capacity to do all kinds of things that other people are doing right now. If we were ready, if we weren't afraid. I had someone tell me, she said, I really would like to visit Ghana, but I'm afraid of flying. I said, well, I don't know why you're afraid of flying. She said, the lady said, well, I'm afraid of flying over water. I said, well, let me tell you something. So to try to allay that fear. If you're flying over land, which you're not afraid of flying over, and something happens to that plane, you're not going to survive just because you're flying over land. You'll be comfortable. But if the plane has a problem, you ain't going to survive that plane crashing 30,000 feet if it lands on land or on the water. So you can just stop bothering yourself about that. Not going to make it. You're going to be dead either way. So don't say you're afraid of flying over water. Just say you don't want to fly. But if you're flying over land, it ain't going to change the reality of that. You're just telling yourself stories that don't make any sense. So, but I think that in a few months, so I'm watching it every day. I get messages from Ghana all day long, and I'm following it on whatever is reported. But some things have already started happening that are going to be monumental. So we're going to be alert. We're going to do what we do. We're going to keep moving ahead, and we're going to maneuver in and out, just like football players. You're running a play, the running back, you run where the hole is. There ain't no hole, you run some other way. That's all we're going to do. We're going to find a way to get through the maze. But we can help ourselves, and we can convince ourselves. So see, we've lost in our time. The 60s and 70s gave us tremendous confidence in ourselves. We just had the feeling that we could make stuff happen because we were fighting these things tooth and nail. So right now we've lost some of our confidence. We don't think we can do anything. So we're telling ourselves it's all good when we know it's not all good. We just saying things that make ourselves feel better. But we could gain our confidence back by doing simple things, just figuring out how could you go through the day and drive less? Because if you drive less, you would save money. You would save fuel. And whoever's making all the money off of the gasoline that we're buying would feel a pinch. It may not be a big pinch, but it would be a small pinch because they're not selling. How much TV could you turn off and not watch? Just don't watch it anymore. Because if you turn it off and don't watch it, you know that it's causing a small pinch to the advertisers that are making money off of that show. It may not be huge, but it's a little something. And you can decide what clothes are you interested in buying that you really don't need to buy. And just don't buy them. It may not be a big revolution, but the people that sell them things are going to feel a small pinch because you're not buying it. The food that you need, the entertainment that you do, you don't need to spend all this money.
Yes.
It won't be a revolution, but it will be a small thing that you know is going to create a small pinch.
Bus boycott.
Enough pinches, somebody says, ouch.
Yeah.
Enough pinches, somebody says, ouch. And we see it all the time.
Bus boycott.
Boycott. Look at the momentum that has shifted the sentiments about Israel and Gaza. And if we were thinking logically and analytically, how can we justify, how can a nation justify that is supporting a country that's engaged in a war. You're the main supplier of the war machinery. And you have the gall to say that you have no control over the country. That's like you buying your child, giving your child a lease, paying the lease on a condo, and they're driving your Mercedes-Benz car, and you ask them to stop by and pick up something and bring it to you, and they tell you they don't have time to do that. That's your problem. You got to go get stuff the best way you can. How would a child of yours tell you something like that, and you say, well, I understand, son, you're busy and I'm busy. You're paying their mortgage. You're paying the note on their car, and they have the nerve to tell you that they can't do what you ask them to do? No parent would accept this kind of response. But yet you are supplying all the weaponry, trying to get more money to go to this place, and you say you have no control over them? So that's just hard for me to swallow. That's a hard pill to swallow. So that's not even smoke and mirrors. That's in our face. That's in our face. And we don't see this. And so we're trying to figure out what we're going to do come the next election. We're seeing how our people, how our leaders function. And I don't see how we can see that this is insane. The whole thing is insane. But to your question, we're going to do whatever we have to do to survive. That's what we've done. That's what our ancestors have done. They've left us templates, and if we can get back to our right minds.
Come on, say it again.
If we can get back to our right minds and not be persuaded by everything that somebody tells us that comes on TV, we have people that are wise enough that can guide us. Our people are not all crazy. We can look objectively at things and say, this ain't going to work, and do something else. And so we'll keep doing it. And we have enough people that are trying. We have enough people collectively that are trying. As we coalesce and circumstances develop that might make the picture clearer, we'll keep pushing at it. We'll try to keep telling people, students, look, don't be crazy. Let me tell you something. The Chinese, I presented it in school the other day. 2013, there was an educational, as a matter of fact, I said it when Chica and Tony Browder were here. I just presented it to the students the other day. 2013, China concluded, based on research and comparatives, that their third grade students were slipping, and they no longer outperformed Western high school seniors. They declared a national emergency, fired the Minister of Education, because in their mind, if their third grade students can't outperform Western high school seniors, it's a serious national calamity. So I mentioned to students, I said, China is not playing. When you go to school in China, they want an 8-year-old to perform better than an 18-year-old Western student that's been having fun. Been having fun, but you don't know things. So that's your competition. This is your competition out there. So you're going to have to think a lot more seriously about yourself, because this competition is global. You think your competition is the person sitting next to you. That ain't the competition. They're in the bubble right here with you. Your competition is taking place in places that you don't even know exist. So you can fool around if you want to, but you'll be working for the Chinese.
Yeah.
They'll be your boss.
Now, I want to rewind just a little bit because we've been talking about elections, and you mentioned that the elections will be held in Ghana in December. I was thinking about what happened a few months ago when there was going to be a Pan-African conference in Ghana,
Right.
and Akufo-Addo said no. I'm thinking of Madam Chiambori Kwao and PLO Lumumba and all those others that were going to gather there to talk about the continent and an agenda. And then you also invoke the idea of the influence that the United States will have on that president and his policy towards the LGBTQ agenda. I know you again don't have a crystal ball, but what do you see happening in that country as the people of that country perhaps push back on some of the things that their leader is pushing on them?
Well, not only Ghana, but any nation, even the U.S. See, all the constitutions that exist, the constitutional language implies that the leadership represent the agent of the people. That's what's implied in the language. What's taking place over time is the leadership is interested in functioning more as a dictator, whereby they do what they think they need to do, and they tell the people that it's in your interest. Well, the structure of democracy is not based on that model. So whenever the people wake up and realize that the politicians are supposed to be your chosen agent, then you have a change in circumstances. But as long as the politician tells you that this is good for you, and you don't realize that they're supposed to be working for you and not you working for them, you'll say, well, if you say so, well, you know best. You know best. But at some point, the people actually know best themselves because they can see that this is not best. So the people will begin to push back or support a rival that is likely to be more conducive to the interests of the people. But the event you're talking about, I was watching it too. What happened, the technicality, the the group that was putting on the event, since it was going to take place near Kwame Nkrumah's circle, they had to take out a petition for the use of the space, which is not uncommon, and it's customary. If you're going to have a big gathering like that in a public place, you have to get a permission. You have to get a permit. So they applied for the permit. They received the permit, but the permit indicated that the gathering was going to be around a celebration of culture, and guests were invited from various places: Chiambori Kwao, PLO Lumumba, Malema from South Africa, and another person from Nigeria. Well, once it got close enough to the event, it became clear that the event was actually a political rally to announce the presidency of a third party candidate. So that being the case, it meant technically that the application for the event was not accurate. It wasn't forthright. So, and if you're going to have a political event, political events require more security than the event that they were just allegedly applying for. So once they found out that it was a political event where the announcement of a third candidate was going to be made, they could cancel the event on the technicality that the application was fraudulent. So that's why the event was canceled. That may not be the only reason it was canceled, but that was the stated reason that they couldn't argue with. So it's like the event organizers shot themselves in the foot by not putting forth the proper application.
Of course, it didn't help that it was an opposition candidate.
No, that fueled it more.
Right, for sure.
So once you had the application that you can hold up and say, well, this wasn't true, that wasn't true, we would have had more security. And they also said that at the time they had an emergency event at the same venue that they couldn't cancel or they couldn't avoid, but nobody saw this other event. So I don't know if that was a genuine expression of what happened or not, because no one saw this other event being planned or taking place, and the crowd was already there. The cancellation came 2 hours before the event was supposed to actually happen.
Wow.
So,
hey, Doc, I just want to drive home this mindset, this mentality type of thing, because when we was talking about the schools, and I seen that that Japanese little piece as well, and it drove home something that really just got seated in me that I be talking about, and how this brainwashing thing has us in this complacency and limited thinking. And what I mean by that is, because of our conditioning in this country, we think the way we doing something now is the only way something can be done. You know what I mean? That who says that you have to go 4 years to understand something about an eyeball? Who put those parameters up there and say this is the way? And I think Black folks, especially, because it's detrimental to us, to have this narrow tunnel vision that they have placed in our mindset in believing that this is the only way something can be done. And so and being Black folks the way they are, so spiritual, so creative into doing something, if they have the freedoms and the ability and the facilities to do it, we would come with a creative way of doing something. We that's just the way we are. We just look how innovative our African brothers and sisters is all across the continent with nothing, and creating and making something happen. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that we fall into this little limited thinking type of way that the system has put it and placed it into this whole way of doing things, and we stay right there. We stay stuck right there.
well, what you're talking about is, if I could get something to resonate with people, if we got up every day and assumed that we were schizophrenic, we just took that as a given, that would mean we would admit to ourselves that in some certain ways we are out of touch with reality, and go search for the reality. We assume we just assume that our whole life we're on a Hollywood set, and everything we do is been programmed, all of it. And we're looking for the way out of it. Like the movie, I can't call the name of the movie now, where the comedian that was on Saturday Night Live was born, and his whole life was on TV. everything in this world was orchestrated by actors. And he finally got a way to get to the door at the end and realize that there's a whole world outside of this place where he's been living. He thought that was the whole universe. So we're living in this artificial reality that if we believe all of its rules, it's like the Matrix. If we believe all of its rules, then we will assume that there's nothing we can do. But what if we didn't believe that everything? We used to have a saying as I grew up: if you believe you can, you might be able to do something. If you believe you can't, you won't. So that's what I mean. We've lost our confidence. We don't think we can do anything about the circumstances. We just have to put up with them. But if you get outside of that way of thinking, that's why I think it's so important for people to go to visit Africa, because you see people every day that have what you would consider to be almost nothing, but they're not depressed, they're not complaining, they're working, they're creative, they're doing things all the time. And that same creative capacity is within each of us. The 60s, we saw it. The 70s, we saw it. All the people that we talk about that did great things, they were just people just like us. They just believed that they could do something. I would not be surprised if you would have stories that you talked about your Ubuntu restaurant catering service to 10 people, and all 10 of them said, that ain't gonna work. You ain't gonna be able to do that. Yeah, you could talk to people and say, I'm trying to do a podcast. They say, well, that ain't gonna work because you're not gonna be able to do that. You don't have enough money to do that. You don't have enough time to do that. Joe Rogan's got that all tied down, or whoever got a big podcast. You ain't gonna be able to do it. So if you listen to all of that negativity, you just be sitting around all the time doing nothing, because most of our people are telling themselves and telling each other that you can't do this, you can't do that, you won't be able to get this done. They ain't gonna let you do this. They ain't gonna let you do that. You're not gonna be able to get the resource. They just talking themselves out of the very effort that needs to be made to get something done. So that's why I say we've lost our confidence. But all of our people that are alive, the DNA of our ancestors have been passed on for eons, and now it's in all the people that are walking around every day. So whatever has been done is capable of being redone and replicated by you. You got the same DNA that allowed the people to do it before.
Good point. Yes.
Then we act surprised. Here's the thing that tickles me. We act surprised that LeBron James' sons can play basketball. Ain't that amazing? Carmelo Anthony's son can play basketball. Wow. Derrick Rose's son can play basketball. Wow. But why does that surprise you? The DNA that allowed them to do that has been passed on to these people so they can do it too. So the DNA from our ancestors, Mansa Musa, you mean ain't none of us got Mansa Musa's DNA? It's been passed on. People are sitting with that DNA. The difference is you're just sitting around saying, woe is me. You're not using the DNA that's in between your ears that would allow you to be just as creative, just as accomplished. We got young boys in Africa that built an electric car by himself.
Yes.
And driving it around. He hasn't gone to MIT. He doesn't know anything about coursework. I saw a girl on, you might have seen her too. She created a cell phone that has a holographic app that you can press on buttons and a hologram comes up in front of the phone that she invented. So all these people, the DNA is resting in our people. The problem is, to go back to what I said, we got this DNA and we're distracted by having fun. the DNA is not useful to us. Anybody can have fun. That doesn't require anything. So if you put the DNA to use and said, look, I can do something. Rites of passage would say, I'm on this planet to do something special. And nobody else is here to do this special thing but me. So I've got an obligation to do this thing. Humanity needs this thing. I can't just sit around here every day trying to say, what am I going to do? Woe is me. I got to get busy working on this. And as soon as you decide that you're going to do something, it doesn't amaze you that you begin to get busy.
Mm-hmm.
And the universe shows you things that you hadn't seen before. And the internet does this too, from the algorithms. It mimics the universe in this sense. As soon as the algorithm starts to get an idea of something you like, it shows you pop-ups that are similar to the thing that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you convey enough information that announces that you're looking for a car, you'll see pop-ups now about cars that are for sale that you didn't even look for. But the system is responding to your interest. So the same thing, that's nothing but a replication of the universe. As soon as you decide that you're going to do something and you start taking steps to achieve that thing, the universe itself is going to start to present options to you that will help you. But as long as you're just sitting there saying, I don't know what's going to happen, well, the universe, you ain't calling on the universe to do anything. The universe and your ancestors, they're only interested in us. They're only interested in what we're trying to do because they're part of the Ubuntu that makes us who we are. So if we're not trying to do anything, there's no reason for them to assist us. Because there's no need to assist a person that's not trying to do anything. They don't need any assistance. They're 100% successful. They're doing nothing. They don't want to do anything, and they're successful. But as soon as you say, and I would challenge people to do this, make a decision about anything that you say you want to do. Anything. I don't care what it is. And you sincerely say you want to do that and take one step towards doing it. You will find that the universe will respond by giving you ideas. You'll meet people that know something about what you want in the grocery store, at the gas station, at the most odd places. You'll meet a person that knows something about what you want to do because the universe is obligated to respond to you because the universe can't do anything unless it's done through somebody.
Wow.
Amos Wilson is gone. But if we talk about Amos Wilson's spirit wakes up and hears us talking about him. And if there's something we need, he's going to try his best to get it to us. He's not going to live on unless he does that. Because nobody's going to be talking about him. In Africa, they say nobody dies officially until their name is never mentioned again. So if you knew that or you believe that, what's the thing that you would do? If you had a son, you would name him after you because your name would always be mentioned and your life would keep going on. So this is why people are named after people, to keep that name alive so that the person that had that name before is still alive. So all these people are working on our behalf, provided we're giving them something to do.
Wow. That was good.
Well, look, think about this practically. We have a religion that has a phrase, as above, so below, right?
Yeah.
So we say, well, what does that mean? That means whatever we do on earth, that's the configuration above too. How many people do you help that don't ask you for help?
Quite a bit.
I mean, people that you see every day. You don't help the people that you see.
No, if they're right, if they ain't asking for anything, you
don't
right
do nothing.
Yeah, most times.
You don't have people that you see sitting on a park bench doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If you help somebody, it's because you see what they're trying to do. You see the energy they're putting in it, and you say you could help them. There's no reason to help a person that's not trying to do something. They don't need help. But once somebody asks you for help, then you can evaluate whether that help will be beneficial or you can do anything. That's also culturally why when you go to Africa and you go to a village, the first thing they ask you is, what is your mission? They want to know what help you need and whether or not they have the capacity to help you. Because if they don't have the capacity to help you, the best thing they can do is refer you to somebody that they think can help you. So if you have no mission, there's no reason for you to be on earth. If you have a mission and you're working on a mission, see, all of us have a mission. You're trying to do something. You're trying to get something done. So the universe is always going to be assisting you because you're engaged in the mission. Once you stop, if you say, well, I'm tired, I'm not going to do anything else anymore, then the universe doesn't have to respond to you. You can be scratched off the list because you're not attempting anything. You don't need help. So we got people that want help that aren't doing anything. You don't need help. You have to first establish the fact that you are attempting to do something. Then you can qualify for assistance. If you're not trying to do anything, you don't need help. You got that taken care of. The universe is just like us. That's what I take from as above, so below. Down here, we act just like the universe to each other. You call me, you say, I need something. If I got it, you know you got it. If I call you and say, could you do this? If you can do it, you're going to do it. I know you're going to do it. I know that before I even call you. You know that before you call me. That's the relationship that we have with our ancestors too. If we need something, our ancestors are going to come. Unless we're just playing games. If we're serious, the ancestors are going to come. So I would tell people, the best way to get moving is to decide something that you're going to do. Figure out, why were you born? Think about it. Why were you born? Why are you sucking up air if you're not doing anything? Why are you taking up?
Uh-oh. Did we lose that? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Existence if all you're doing is complaining about things. Do something. Try to fix what you complain about.
Okay.
His phone may be going on.
Yeah, it could be that the battery is losing its life. It probably was not connected to a power supply, but
for sure.
Brother Antonio, we've gotten some serious wisdom today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad he said it, because that's, I mean, it, man, it's what I've been preaching for the longest. You get plugged up, Doc.
I think my call interrupted our program. I got to Zoom.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Nana, we
can wrap it up. Mm-hmm.
We know that you're in demand, and I think you might have a Zoom to get to, but I really want to sincerely thank you for your time today. As I was just sharing with Brother Antonio, we've learned so much, and I really do hope that people will take the time to watch this video after it posts. You know, we could waste our time watching mindless videos on YouTube, or we can tune into things that have an ability to give us the education that we need to be successful in life. We look forward to being with you next Saturday. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings. Yes. Right. So reminding you guys to come on out if you want to meet and get a chance, and you have some questions or something for Dr. Whitaker, you know, with somebody that's have boots on the ground, that is living there, can tell you about the people, tell you about the culture, you know, and a great contact if you're thinking about moving over in Ghana or in Africa, things like that. So come on out next Saturday, guys, to his school and get a chance to view the school. So you won't have to be worrying about critical race theory there. You know what I'm saying, Vince? You don't have to worry
Absolutely.
about that. So come on out and see the school. It's a beautiful school, it's a good environment for your children. So enroll. This is FUBU, for us, by us. Okay, so come on out and get a chance to meet our good professor and leading researcher and scholar Manu Pim. Get a chance to talk with him and listen to what he's going to bring to the table. One of our top researchers. You guys had 2 episodes to got a chance to hear him on our show. So, and he's dynamite. He brings a host of wisdom. So come and join us there and get a chance to feel get a little African food as well, and meet and greet people of like minds. So come on out the 16th, next Saturday. Doors are open about 2 o'clock. Tickets are 15 in advance, 20 at the door. And let's keep moving forward with this, because we see what's going on with this country. You see the direction that they're going in. So we're gonna have to do something, like Dr. Whitaker say, do something.
All right. With that, as we always say, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and make today your absolute best day. Peace, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.